opening song. Pat, I think you're up for the story for all ages.
And the opening words.
And the opening words.
Our opening words come from the Spartanburg UU. They close every service, and it's something I want us to think about. We don't have to do it today. But they close every service by singing together. And they sing, "We have had time together, and these holy moments give us strength to go down the winding road until we meet again." Okay, now, folks who want to hear a story for all ages, I guess I have to stay on this microphone. Come on. One of the problems with, come on, Ellery, one of the problems with stories for all ages is that they often last a long time. And in my time as a UU minister, I have really encouraged people who tell the story for all ages to keep it short. So because you already know this story, I'm going to keep it really short. But I'm going to tell it in Italian, if that's okay. You okay with that? Once upon a time, there was 3 bears. There was the mama bear, the papa bear, and the baby bear. And you know what happened, right? You know that they went for a walk because the porridge was too hot, right? Am I telling it right? You fix me if I'm not telling it right, okay? And so they went to the woods, and Goldilocks came in, and the porridge, one was too hot, and one was too cold, but one was just right, right? That's the way the story goes, right? And then she went to sit in a chair. And one was too hard, and one was too soft. And then there was one that was just right. Yes, yes. And then she went to try the beds. And one of the beds was too soft, and one of the beds was too hard, and one of them was just right. That's right. Well, that's Unitarian Universalism. We are not too hot. We are not too cold. We are just right. We are just right. And if you don't believe it, you just ask us. Okay, y'all can go to your classes now. Go now.
Okay, now we start. Welcome everybody who's here in person and also through technology if you're not able to get here in person. We're an open and inclusive fellowship. Everyone is welcome here. We follow our paths in different ways to find our meaning in life, but we are committed to our beliefs in the dignity and worth of the individual. We're also committed to expressing our faith in acts of kindness and compassion and justice. My name's Elaine. I've been a member since 2019. Our speaker today is Pat Jobe. Again, he's going to be speaking to us about the natural world and leading us into green living. Before we do that, that's next. That's next. Don't worry. I don't forget. Okay. Marge gave me a clue that you're supposed to light this little candle first. And then I'm going to ask somebody, if anybody wants to be a volunteer to light our chalice, you can. Otherwise, I'll do it. Get this thing open. Push back. Okay. You go hard.
Hey, help you?
Yes, please. Oh, there it goes. But you can like the big one, I appreciate that. Okay, would you look in your order of service, please, and repeat the words for the chalice lighting? We light this flaming chalice to illuminate the world we see. In our search for truth, may we be just. In our search for justice, may we be loving. And in loving, may we find peace. Okay, please be comfortable. Please go right ahead. Thank you. That was beautiful. Okay. Pat Jobe is going to give his reflection now.
Pat and Doug Wall have wormed their way into our hearts. Some of us have known them for a while. I have just barely met them, and I'm already crazy about them. And one of the reasons is because on Thursday, I got to be with them at the Charlotte bus station, where we received 3 Brazilians. And there's a horrible joke about the word Brazilian, which I won't tell, but if you'll see me after the service, I'll be glad to share it with you. But these 3 folks were headed to Boston with no winter clothes, and we were able to give them winter clothes. They needed food. We were able to give them food. And that's just the tiniest top of the iceberg that is indicative of the work that they do. And they've also jumped in and organized our auction for us. So please come, Pat and Doug, and wind us up.
So I'm Pat. This is Doug. My sister Susan is over here. She's also part of our team that goes into the buses. We usually go in about 2 to 3 times a week to meet the buses. And we're part of the Mi Amigos project, which actually started out as a migrant assistance program in 2018. We've been doing it for about 3 years now. And at that time, it was to meet asylum seekers coming through Charlotte. They're at the station for about 45 minutes. They've come from the detention centers in Texas, and many of them have not had any food since they left Texas. They go through Atlanta, and they've been on the bus for quite a while. Many of them are in T-shirts, and most of them are going up the coast to New York, Portland, Maine, Boston, where it's much colder. So we have tried to meet them with food packs and clothing and information and hygiene project, things like that. My sister has got pictures of, we don't publicize the pictures just because to keep it kind of on the low key, but we can show them today of some of the families we've helped out. Well, when COVID hit, they had sort of a transition with the migrant project because many people didn't want to go into the station. There were a lot of teams. There's about 1,400 people that are part of the migrant program, but there's only 4 of us now. Pat's coming, so maybe 5 of us that are actually meeting the buses. We have a few teams that are now starting to kind of talk about coming in again, but a lot of churches that were supporting it were a little nervous about the station with COVID and things. We all wear a mask. Everybody has to have a mask while they're there. And so when that happened, when they did the transition at COVID, they started to do a 2-prong response. So the migrant program became helping the asylum seekers that were located in this area. So they have a diaper program. They have a referral program where people can get referred to get food through Loaves and Fishes. Any type of assistance that they could do, they do that now too. And they connect asylum seekers in the area with faith organizations that can also support them. So they do that too, but then the buses piece is what we do, although we do support other parts too. But Doug will tell you a little bit about how it works there while we're there. So,
Where's the food pack go?
what? Oh, it's over there. It's right beside you. You're supposed to
We
have it.
on any given day, we used to have it all on Thursdays, but now we get notification from Atlanta that there are so many people on the bus heading north. And the guilt sets in, if you will, and we try to meet just the 3 of us right now, as many buses that we can during the week. So it's put a strain, and we really appreciate the items here because we have been doing it with some donation, but mostly out of our pockets. But you can look at the pictures there. You get, when you have, well, this is dear to my heart too. You have these 4-year-olds that several years ago were put in a cooler in Texas and separated from their family. We had one gentleman that could speak English. He was in detention for 4 months. He was shackled and led to a Greyhound bus. They took the shackles off, took his cell phone. He had a sponsor in Boston. He said, "What about my wife and my kids?" He says, "They're staying here." He was put on a bus and had to leave his family there. So because we would just talk to them, and they would come in so afraid. And when they would leave there, they were just all happy because they would change clothes there and so forth. So it really touches you, especially when the young kids, if you see one of the picture, one of the little girls there wanted me to see a kitten, and she put me by my pant leg to go over and see a kitten. So it really touches you to see that. But our routine is I have 2 signs, one in Creole now and one in Spanish, and that's going to advance to probably a billboard with Ukrainians coming in. And we had Portuguese one week, and we had a funny story. We were there one day, and this one lady comes in, and I'm trying to talk to her in Spanish on my app. Pat says, "Doug," and I'm still going, she says, "Doug." After 30 times, I said, "What?" She says, "She's Russian." I said, oh God, oh God. Oh. So we had to, so it took me a little while to figure it out. But she was going to New York and she had lost her luggage in Atlanta, and we're trying to write in English for someone at the bus station in New York to help her find her luggage. But I stand out. My job is to come in, and the people at the bus station know now. I open the door where the bus is, prop it open so they come through the door, and we meet them. And we're not doing what you're supposed to. We have to profile, which is sad, but we do it anyway because make sure we get the right people coming in. And they come in, and I direct them to Pat and Susan. And then Susan and Pat, they get Jonathan there too. Jonathan UU, we found out from Massachusetts this last week. Never knew it. We've been seeing him for over a year, and he's a UU. But there's a routine we go through. We give them the food pack. Oh, that's it. This is what typically we do, and that's it. And we hand this to the people with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich too that goes with it, and water for everybody that comes in. Then they look at the needs of the people. If they have shoes on, if they're barefoot, so forth, going to cold climates, we try to give them warm clothes going forward. And we help them with because they can't speak the language and they're in panic mode. So we try to ease their tension there, and we help them. If they're going to New York, we tell them to stay on the same bus to get to New York, so we're helping them in there. And the Google Translator app is a blessing. It helps us immensely. So that's it. That's and we do that. And we're always looking for items, for money to buy the items, and for teams. Even if you know somebody in the community, they not only here but in the community that would like to participate, we can set them in the right direction there. So. Yeah.
You don't have to speak Spanish because we speak nothing in Spanish. And he uses the app, and Susan and I pantomime. And so we look like we're playing charades all the time, but it works. And so the clothing, we try to go and get them at Goodwill, and then we wash them all up and take them in. And Pat brought in some, and it was great because he had a really nice warm vest to give one of the gentlemen, and the little boy was about 7, and he was only in just a little sweatshirt, and they were going to Boston, and we had one more coat left, and it fit him perfectly, and Susan was inside giving it to him. He was so excited. So we try to meet all their needs. We have a backpack that has all sorts of toiletries, and we have lists in both Spanish and in Creole and French, so they can look at the list to see if they need anything, and we try to meet all their needs.
I saw you have a Facebook page.
There is a Facebook page, the Mi Amigos.
Yes, but it looked like you had to join to.
Yeah, you do have to join, and I mean, you don't have to.
I did.
Yeah, you did.
But
Okay.
what is the best link if I wanted to post for people to donate on my Facebook page? What's the best link for that?
To do it through, if they can go, I guess
Website?
just the Mi Amigos. We don't ourselves because we don't publish our pictures, or even that we go there on our own on our own Facebook pages.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't put up anything about it, just for privacy reasons. So the only thing you'll see is usually after we've been in there, we'll post, how many people. Now we had 3 people when Pat was there, but the week before we had 40 between 2 buses. The first bus came in, completely wiped us out. 26 were on that bus. We ran home, made sandwiches, put up more food packs, went back in, and we had more. So some weeks, and we never know how many are going to be there. So we just sometimes don't ever know. We have had as many as 60 with like 2 buses pulled in at the same time with 60. And it's a little tough because it's our team and Jonathan, and sometimes we'll have a little bit of help. So we appreciate all of this. This is just super. This really helped us out. So we appreciate that. Jim?
Do you still need coats?
Yeah, well, because the coats are really great. And even if we don't give them out now, we'll continue this in the fall, of course. So we don't think of that, but they're coming here, but their sponsors are up north, and a lot are going. The Angolans, from people from Angola, are going to Portland, Maine. They must have an entire group there. So we have a lot going to Portland, and the Haitians are coming in. We're getting the Haitians going to Portland, Maine. It's still snowing up there, so you don't think they need it, but huh? Oh, hats and gloves. No, Sue Cunningham brought us a bunch of hats. Oh, socks. We had all the Haitians. She's making hats now. So we had one whole group a couple weeks ago that were from Haiti. They were all in flip-flops and they were all going north. So we were able to give them socks, to do. So we try to, anticipate whatever we can, but, coats work and so it's just great.
Yeah. And if you want to go to church, you go down to the bus.
Yeah. I will tell you though, nicely, we found out by speaking to them, that they were only staying at the border about 4 or 5 days now.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, when we started doing, people were there for 4 months. And, that's made us feel a little bit better. And they seem to be treated better. And so we just hope that our welcome in Charlotte, kind of gives them, a good idea that, people want them here and stuff. So thank you.
Just out there about the options.
Yeah. Please, if you haven't picked up auction forms from Pat, she said she wasn't giving you any choice as you were coming in about getting an auction form, but she may have missed somebody. So please see Pat and Doug and talk about the auction. We have 8 weeks and 6 days and 47 minutes to get to the auction. I'm open to taking anybody with me Tuesday morning. I'm going to go back to the bus station Tuesday morning. So if you want to go with me, yes, ma'am.
What's the date of the auction?
The date of the auction is June 11th. Yeah, June 11th.
Where's the bus station?
Bus station's in downtown Charlotte on 4th Street. Yeah.
What time are you going to be there?
I'm going to be there at 9 o'clock. First bus comes in between 9:15 and 9:30, right? I will have a little bit of stuff with me, and Doug and Pat are going to be there Tuesday morning. So all of this will be there. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the parking, there's only probably 10 or 15 spaces, but just on the other side of the wall, there's plenty of parking.
Call me on your cell phone if you're coming, and we'll strategize. Okay.
And there's a bus track, you can always track the buses.
Okay. All right. We'll be sure to come back next week. I'm just kidding. Yeah, but do see Doug and Pat after the service to talk about the auction. What this reminds me of, when we were able to hand that stuff off on Thursday, it reminds me of Daniel Berrigan saying his prayer for us is that someday we would be able to hand a loaf of bread across the table to someone who was hungry. Imagine that. This is what Doug and Pat do all the time. And you got a lot of detail just now, but just think about that one single act. And then Berrigan said, and my deeper prayer for you is that you may have baked that bread. A walk in the woods. A hike in the mountains. You know a little bit about that, don't you, Elaine? A stroll on the beach. All of these evoke Nietzsche's wonderfully phrased saying, all great thoughts occur while walking. And I would be willing to bet that some of you went to the woods when I said those words, a walk in the woods. In your imagination, that's where you went. A hike in the mountains. A stroll on the beach. One of the hardest things about the time we are living through is considering the harm of climate change and what we can do about it. Sadly, as a congregation, there is not much we can do, and there is not much we can do as individuals. Terry Taylor wants me to tell you that we need to do more. In fact, she's mad at us that we're not doing more. We need to be on the street protesting. We need to be lobbying our elected representatives and the White House. But I have protested in the street, and I have lobbied elected officials, and I can tell you that it doesn't always produce results. And I will protest again, and lobby again, and work for candidates I believe can accomplish good things. But when it comes to the current environmental crisis, the urgency is not here yet. And by the time it arrives, some of us may have to flee a fire or a flood before we take it seriously, before we are moved to protest in the streets, lobby our elected officials, or work for candidates who may do some good. And of course, I encourage you to support Amy Brooks and Green Faith. That effort is ongoing in concert with other environmental organizations in North Carolina to make a difference. I know this is grim stuff, and some of you are already prepared for me to shift to my happy-go-lucky, joy, joy, joy way of being in the world. Don't worry, it's coming. But before I get to my cheerful cheerleader stance, let me ask you to think for a moment about Greta Thunberg. The young Swedish environmental activist broke onto the world stage 4 years ago and has inspired millions to march in the streets. Her impatience is legend. She is poking the bear of fossil fuel burning, consumption, wasting of natural resources, deforestation, factory farming, all the poisons of causes of global warming. And it hasn't worked. We can't be sure that it won't work eventually, but for now, the massive machinery of environmental damage just turns on like a monster that eats trees. Not far from where I live, the state is building a new highway. In its path are hundreds of downed trees, many of which have already been bulldozed into massive piles that they will soon burn. Not only have we lost these grand, beautiful processors of CO2 who turn it into life-giving oxygen, but they will soon unceremoniously burn to add more CO2 to the atmosphere. Environmentalists tell us that one of the major sources of deforestation is new highway construction. On the radio Friday, I heard the sad story of a glacier melting in the high mountains of Mexico. Nearby deforestation contributes to the melting as trees provide an insulation that prevents melting, a buffer against the loss. I know, these stories are so hard to hear. We sometimes want to cover our ears and go la, 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 in hopes that some good news will follow these heartbreaking stories. The broadcast concluded with the reporter saying, as the glacier disappears, local people who have depended on seasonal melting to supply their water will have to look for new sources of water. Water, y'all. When the glacier is gone, our friends in the mountains of Mexico will need new sources of water. Okay, go back to the beginning with me. Walk in the woods, hike in the mountains, stroll along the beach. A physicist named Thomas Luton wrote these words in a recent magazine article: a walk in the woods, every shade of green, a fleck of rain, the sensations and thoughts bound in every moment of experience feel central to our existence. But physics, which aims to describe the universe and everything in it, says nothing about our inner world. Our descriptions of the wavelengths of light as they reflect off leaves capture something, but not what it is like to be deep in the woods. It can seem as if there is an insurmountable gap between our subjective experience of the world and our attempts to objectively describe it. And yet our brains are made of matter, so you might think that states of mind they generate must be explicable in terms of states of matter. The question is how? If we can't explain consciousness in physical terms, how do we find a place for it at all embracing the universe? There is no question in science that it is more difficult and confusing. These are the words of a theoretical physicist at the Perimeter Institute for Theoretical Physics in Waterloo, Canada. It also is one that he and others are addressing with renewed vigor, convinced that we will never make sense of the universe's mysteries. Things like how reality emerges from the fog of the quantum world and what the passage of time truly signifies, unless we reimagine the relationship between mind and matter. Their ideas amount to an arduous attempt to describe the universe from the inside out, rather than the other way around. And they might just force us to abandon long-cherished assumptions about what everything is ultimately made of. Now, why in the world did I put y'all through that? In the blink of about 2 minutes, I took you from cutting down trees, melting glaciers, and the indescribable sadness of such stories into questions of physics, being unable to measure consciousness, and how we know things. Why did I do that? We need to understand the process of understanding. Climate scientists tell us that millions will be displaced, but we have already lived through the migration of close to 20 million refugees, people from the Middle East into Europe, from Afghanistan into the United States, from Ukraine into Poland, Hungary, and throughout Europe. And some of all of these groups are coming to America. Our southern border remains a destination for Haitians, Mexicans, Central Americans, Africans, even Chinese, who have been greeted by Pat and Doug Wall and Pat's sister Susan and their allies at the Charlotte bus station. The climate crisis is here. We are living through it now. Many of those fleeing bad circumstances are doing so because of hurricanes and drought. Even the war in Syria, which has now cost hundreds of thousands of lives, destroyed cities, left tribal warlords in charge. Even that war was started because of climate-related drought. What can we do? What should we be paying attention to? How do we line up our spending and our politics and our ways of knowing things to make a difference? It is a torturous question. If I urge you as soon as possible to convert to an electric car, you will remind me that Duke Power's Lake Norman plant burns coal. Friends of mine who drive electric cars say the cost is a fraction of gasoline-powered cars. The other side says the eventual landfilling of batteries is an environmental disaster. Would it matter if we simply used less, drove less, turned down the thermostats in our homes, all the Earth Day urgings of the past 50 years? Would that help? Would that help? It would matter a little bit, and I simply would not discount those efforts. But it will take another 50 years to have zero carbon technology widely used to the point that we are no longer overheating the planet with our pollution. And who among us thinks we have 50 years? And of course, we have to think of our grandchildren to even plan actions that might impact 50 years from now. Go back to consciousness. Go back to shifting your thoughts and feelings to oneness with the walk in the woods, the mountains, the stroll along the beach. Think and feel again what it means to be part of something larger than ourselves. Be there now among the trees, letting some mountain or ocean vista pour into you like a waterfall of altered consciousness. Take deep breaths. Remember that by breathing deeply, you can connect to the oxygen in your blood, the beating of your own heart. We are in the presence of natural grandeur. Yes, this building is beautiful, and we are so grateful to be here, but there are trees in the yard. Trees that are returning oxygen to our lungs, returning oxygen to a life system that runs the surface of this fragile planet and keeps billions and billions of us alive. One meme that I saw recently on Facebook said, "We are not tiny drops in the ocean. We are the ocean." That brings to mind the 1985 hit single by Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones. We are the world. We are the world. That included Ray Charles and Billy Joel, Diana Ross, and Cyndi Lauper, Bruce Springsteen, Paul Simon, Kenny Rogers, Bob Dylan, Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, Dionne Warwick, Daryl Hall, Huey Lewis, Dan Aykroyd, Harry Belafonte, and Tina Turner. They numbered 45 in all. I thought y'all might enjoy hearing that list read. The entire recording session and final mix on January 28th and 29th lasted from 10:30 in the evening until 8 the following morning. The single sold 20 million copies and has been seen 93 million times on YouTube. The effort raised over $68 million for aid to victims of the Ethiopian famine, and the efforts of USA for Africa has touched hunger and development projects in 7 African countries and here in the United States up until the present day. And it left us with a consciousness-raising phrase: we are the world. We are the children. We are not tiny drops in the ocean. We are the ocean. As the song says, together we are saving our own lives.
It's called Giant Purple Butterflies from a Trip Through the Rainforest.
Thanks, Pat, and thank you, Teresa Woody. Those were really beautiful. This fellowship is important to us. Our contributions today sustain and grow our congregation and reach to our community nearby and the larger world. Your giving affirms our commitment to each other and to the community. everything's going my way. Morning, oh what a beautiful day. I've got a wonderful feeling. Everything's going my way. With grateful hearts, we receive these gifts. May they encourage us to live lives of integrity, compassion, and peace. You have some announcements in your bulletin. If you would like to take a look, we have a book club, and we're also going to occasionally do a movie club on Tuesdays, and we have dinner usually after that. If you're around today, sometimes we have lunch organized afterwards, and we'd be very happy if the visitors would join us. Okay, what I do is do a short candle.
Teresa, thank you so much. Our closing words come from John Donne. No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. If a cloud be washed away by the sea, Europe is the less, as well as if a promontory were, as well as if a manor of thy friends or of thine own were. Any man's death diminishes me, because I am involved in mankind, and therefore never sin to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee.
Well, the final words, I guess, are that we've extinguished the chalice already, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again. Peace to everybody.
Thank you.